Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video, we're discussing Dry, written by Neal Shushterman and Jarrod Shushterman. Look, don't get me started on authors who co-author a book with their children. I don't think it should be done. And I'd like to rate this book a 1 out of 5 just because of that. But I won't rate it a 1 out of 5 because I thought it was an okay book. But writing a book with your children, co-authoring a book with your children, it just leaves a bad feeling for me when I read books like that. This book is a young adult sci-fi novel with dystopian elements. It's an interesting concept. I don't know if it's a concept that would actually happen in real life. So that stuck with me when I read this book. As I was reading it, I just kept thinking, look, nothing would happen like this in real life. There'd be more warning and more help for people in this situation, and probably never get to that situation anyway. But it is a fiction novel, so I thought, let's just roll with it and see where it goes, and see if the book is enjoyable and entertaining. And it was for some parts. So it was an okay book, but not wonderful. The book starts with taps running dry in California, a very small part of California anyway. Our main character, Alyssa, and her family, they learn this just by turning the taps on and no water coming out. They don't seem very quick to action. They don't seem very panicked by it, even though they think that the water could be out for a few days, a week or so. They're not sure how long at this stage. But if that was me, I'd be hot-footing it to a store to get water if I didn't have bottled water on hand. They didn't do that very quickly. And by the time they do that in the book, they get to stores and the water's all gone. I mean, everything's gone. There's no water, there's no soda water, there's no mineral water, everything's gone. So the whole plot then is driven from their inaction and their slow action. And that seemed a strange setup for me, because I would have thought that characters in that situation would act very quickly. What they do is manage to get some ice, and they think, we'll grab bags of ice and we can throw it in the bathtub and drink bathtub water. Well, fair enough. But what they didn't know is that they have to seal the bath up properly, and so that introduces another character to us, and he lives a few houses up the road with his family, and the family is a survivalist family, they're preppers. So he gives them the idea about sealing the bath up properly, and he helps them with that. So we're given this character who's got a lot of skills, and also he is seen in a better light than what Alyssa, the main character, thinks of him as. They're both the same age, go to the same school, and Alyssa always thought of him as being a bit odd. But in reality, he's quite clever, probably the smartest kid at the school nearly, and he's got a lot of compassion. He helps people and wants to help them. So there's more to that character than Alyssa thinks. People are getting a bit testy in the neighbourhood. There's a lot of anger bubbling beneath the surface, and it doesn't take long before the neighbourhood is turning against the preppers, against Kelton, who's the boy the same age as Alyssa and his family, because they're prepared. They've got a generator, they've got a water tank, they've got food stored away. They're prepared for a disaster. Nobody else is. And then everybody else thinks that this family should share with them. Just because they're not prepared, they think they can go and take what they want, demand what they want from the people who are. So that's where the anger comes from. And Kelton and his family aren't the ones who are angry. Everybody else is. That seemed odd as well. But I guess that just shows human nature. People get angry for different reasons. And it could be greed, it could be that they find themselves in a hopeless situation and they, instead of blaming themselves, they blame other people. And that's what it seems like in this book. Things get out of hand really quickly, and there's a big moment in this book, probably more than one moment, and we find Alyssa and her brother Garrett and Kelton escaping the situation and leaving to get to the bug out location that Kelton's family has in a forest. And it's quite a distance away, a few hours, and to get there it's quite dangerous. All the roads are getting blocked off and congested. They find there's military coming into the area, so it's very hard to get there. So the book then becomes about the journey to get to this bug out location and how to survive that along the way. And we get new characters coming into the story as our three main characters travel to the bug out location, and the new characters aren't always good. There are people there that are, quite evil in a way in this book as well, as you'd expect in a book like this, because you've got to drive the tension and suspense up and that action up as well. So in that way, the characters are written okay. Very typical for a book like this. There's nothing new, nothing shocking in the characters or the situations they find themselves in, really. It's just like any other disaster type story. The overall concept is good, a bit unique, but the way it's presented isn't. One of the big things that grabbed me in this book is that it was interesting seeing these young characters who are the smartphone generation trying to navigate a world without their devices, because nothing was working. Everything seemed jammed. It was either congestion on the network, or networks went down, or the military was blocking it. I'm not sure what it was, but it was interesting to see these characters trying to find their way around the world, around their area, without their smartphones. And that just goes to show that if something happened like that in real life, would we all be able to cope? How would we go without our smartphones to help us through everyday life? That made me think about that while I was reading this book. And that's one of the concepts, I think, one of the themes that go on in this book. And that was well done. That was quite cleverly presented to us. And it was done in a really good way, because it doesn't make you think about it, because the characters get stressed about it and they get upset about it. And there's certain characters who can cope with it, mostly Kelton, but most of the characters can't. The end of the novel is a bit cheesy. I didn't really enjoy it. It just seemed a bit midday movie, the end of the novel. It didn't suit the rest of the novel. It was too nice, too complete. I would have preferred a more real ending, because their area, I'm not sure how big area was without water in the book, but the whole area went through a major shift, and you would have thought that that would have had big impacts on them, but didn't seem to. By the end of it, they all seemed to be over it and coping quite well. I would have thought there would have been bigger impacts than that for that whole area. Alyssa is our main character, and she took charge a lot, and I like that. I didn't mind having that strong female character taking charge. She had a lot of ups and downs in this book, a lot of emotional ups and downs, and that was used to generate the tension and suspense, I think, in this book. But it was also very melodramatic, and I think sometimes it was overly done. And I don't know if that's because she's a female character that the authors did that, but I think it could have been toned down a bit, because this character was written as a very strong character, and having those melodramatic moments were not consistent with who the character was, in my opinion. So I think the authors kind of didn't get that right, and made the character less perfect in the book. Kelton is the best written character in this book, the most consistent. I liked his angle in the book. I liked the fact that he was the son of preppers, and it gave him that edge. But also, he wasn't taking charge a lot. He seemed to have a bit more of a balanced view about what to do. He had moments where he wasn't as strong, wasn't as positive, and he lost control a bit. And you could understand those moments, because you could see his whole, kind of world shattering a bit at certain moments in the book. But they were so understandable that it suited his character and still made it consistent. I did enjoy Kelton a lot in this book, and I thought he was probably the best represented character in the whole story. Jackie is one of the tag-alongs in the story that our main characters meet along the way. She was a bit hit and miss. She wasn't that consistent. She was written as this kind of unstable character, and it seems that all these type of stories have a character like that popping up somewhere. And she was like a token character in that way, a token unstable character that makes rash decisions and does crazy things, and was also a bit trigger happy, or a bit uncontrollable, and not stable in general. So I think as a character, a bit of a stereotype, a bit hit and miss, not consistent, and while she had some interesting moments in the book, I just felt the character wasn't engaging enough for the whole time she was in the story. This book is an interesting concept. It's something that you could see may happen in the future. I don't know if it's that likely, especially with the amount of warning you'd get if something like this were to happen, but it's still an interesting thought, and it was explored quite well. It's not a perfect book, but I think it was explored to a fairly good degree. Because of that, I rate it a 3 out of 5. It was entertaining, not perfect by any means. Some of the characters were a bit stereotypical. Some of the events, give or take some of the events, the ending wasn't that good, but I thought the journey and I thought some of the characters were well done. On my channel, I do review a lot of young adult books. If you don't want to miss out on any of those videos, check out my channel and subscribe. There's also a young adult playlist on my channel. You'll see it on your screen now.